Hello and welcome to World Konnect, a show where we get you the latest from across the world. I'm Shreya. Now this week, British Prime Minister Theresa May officially began the divorce process from the European Union. So now Brexit is going to be a reality very soon. On the other hand, Australia was flooded after a powerful cyclone swept across its east coast. And in the US, President Donald Trump nullified Barack Obama's climate change regulation. In the show today, we'll be talking about all of this and much more. But before that, let's take a look at the top stories. UK officially starts the Brexit process. Prime Minister Theresa May triggers Article 50 with a proposal for the Great Repeal Bill. UK's future is in its own hands now. Amid strained ties and tense meetings, Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump to meet next week. President Trump tweets, US cannot tolerate trade deficits. In a revenge attack for killing its leader, Pakistani Taliban attacks a mosque in Parachinar, killing more than 20 and wounding dozens of people gathered for their Friday prayers. Cyclone Debbie leaves a trail of destruction behind in Australia. Thousands evacuated after rivers flood the east coast. New South Wales and southern Queensland inundated. And after high drama, former South Korean President Park Geun-hye arrested over corruption allegations, leaking information and abusing power. Alright, let's get started. As British Prime Minister Theresa May triggered Article 50 to begin the divorce from the European Union, celebrations as well as protests were seen across the United Kingdom. Now, the reason why UK decided to leave the EU was to regain its sovereignty and liberate an economy that was under the European group. Now, with the May government proposing for a Great Repeal Bill this week, UK must be prepared to walk away independently as the world becomes witness to its future.
So here it is, 6 pages. The notification from Prime Minister Theresa May triggering Article 50.
The very moment European Council President Donald Tusk was conveyed by the United Kingdom its decision to quit the European Union, British Ambassador to the European Union, Sir Tim Barrow, handed to Donald Tusk the letter from Prime Minister Theresa May triggering Article 50 to end its association with the European grouping. As celebrations and protests marked the formal initiation of the divorce process, the Theresa May government published its proposals for a Great Repeal Bill. The bill, as the name suggests, will repeal the European Communities Act of 1972. Britain was inducted into the European Union through this law, meaning that European law took precedence over laws passed in the British Parliament. The Parliament nod to the Great Repeal Bill will end the supremacy of European laws and will transpose all the concerned EU laws about various subjects into domestic ones. The move will also end the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, which will convert the body of EU law into domestic law. This will give businesses, workers and consumers certainty on the first day after Britain leaves the bloc in March 2019. There are more than 12,000 EU regulations in force in the United Kingdom.
We have been clear that we want a smooth and orderly exit, and the Great Repeal Bill is integral to that approach. It will provide clarity and certainty for businesses, workers and consumers across the United Kingdom on the day we leave the EU.
In an attempt to address the concerns of European Union nationals who currently reside in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister May said that she was considering citizenship rights post-Brexit, provided British nationals living abroad also get the same security.
One of the things I want to be able to do is to give them reassurance about their future, but I only want to do that when I know that those UK citizens who've moved over to countries in the European Union are also going to have that reassurance and those guarantees.
Although the May government looks set to go ahead with clear agenda and plan of action, it is not as easy as it appears to be. The Great Repeal Bill is the biggest legislative and legal exercise ever undertaken in British history. It faces a number of challenges and complexities. Many feel that the passage of the Great Repeal Bill wouldn't be as easy as the Brexit bill was. Opposition members have warned that the bill was being done without proper parliamentary scrutiny. However, the government has assured MPs that the bill would ensure that workers' rights, environmental protection and consumer rights currently enshrined in EU laws would continue as United Kingdom laws, and Parliament would be free to change them later. Opposition members have also cautioned the government about giving sweeping powers to ministers to make hasty, ill-thought-out legislation. Justifying the move, the government said that it was temporary and was done to avoid unnecessary burden on the Parliament and to remove technical hurdles. Brexit Minister David Davis said that any laws changed in this way would be time-limited and any problems will be put right. The government plans to get the bill passed through both houses of Parliament ahead of the UK's exit from the European Union, but to become law only when it actually leaves. Meanwhile, outlining its strategy for the separation, the European Union has said that they cannot be simultaneously acting on exit arrangement terms and the trade deal. Now, European Council President Donald Tusk has clarified that discussions on trade terms will only be held once sufficient progress is made on the Britain-EU divorce process. The draft guidelines issued by Tusk reiterate a phased approach in talks. The draft will be sent to the 27 member states for approval. Moving on, in an attack that was claimed by Pakistani Taliban, a bomb targeting a mosque in Pakistan's northwestern city of Parachinar killed over 20 people on Friday and wounded dozens. Now, the explosion in a remote area bordering Afghanistan came as people gathered for their Friday prayers at a Shia mosque in the central bazaar. The attack is the latest in a series of attacks across Pakistan this year. Now, the banned terror group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, often referred to as the Pakistani Taliban, said that the blast was part of its Operation Ghazi, named after a radical Islamist leader who was killed by Pakistani security forces in 2007. And let's now have a look at what else made headlines across Asia this week.
South Korea's ousted leader Park Geun-hye has been kept at Seoul detention center on the outskirts of the capital after Seoul court approved a warrant to arrest her. She had been removed from office in March over allegations of bribery and is facing trial for allegations that she colluded with a friend to pressure big businesses to contribute to now defunct foundations set up to back her policy initiatives. Flooding rivers swamped towns along Australia's east coast, forcing evacuation of thousands of people. Fast-flowing waters cut roads and destroyed bridges after the remnants of a powerful cyclone swept through the region. Large areas in northern New South Wales and southern Queensland have been inundated. The body of Kim Jong-nam, half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, arrives in Pyongyang after it requested for it but did not confirm its identity. As part of a deal, 9 Malaysians previously prevented from leaving North Korea were allowed to return home as Kuala Lumpur released the body of Jong-nam. Malaysia and North Korea had been locked in a diplomatic row in the wake of Kim's murder in Kuala Lumpur last month. Iraqi forces battling Islamic State on the edge of the old city in Mosul say IS terrorists are cornered and have suffered huge losses in fighters and equipment. Government positions are very close to the Al-Nuri Mosque, from where Islamic State chief Baghdadi proclaimed a caliphate nearly 3 years ago. Baghdadi and his aides are believed to have left the city. In Syria, army claims to have captured areas north of the Syrian city of Hama. Government forces are fighting to reverse the insurgents' biggest assault in months, and the Russian-backed Syrian army had recaptured 16 villages lost to insurgents last week near Hama.
Well, we're slipping into a break at this point. After the break, we get you the latest from that crucial US-China meet scheduled for next week. This and much more when we return. Stay tuned to World Konnect. Welcome back after the break. Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping will be traveling to United States next week, where he would meet President Trump. Now, the meet will follow a string of recent US-China meetings which were aimed at mending ties after the US president's strong criticism of China during his election campaign. Now, even as Beijing downplayed these tensions, President Donald Trump set the tone for what could be a strained summit when he tweeted that United States could no longer tolerate massive trade deficits and job losses.
The meeting next week with China will be a very difficult one in that we can no longer have massive trade deficits and job losses. American companies must be prepared to look at other alternatives, tweeted US President Donald Trump, setting the tone for a tense meeting with his Chinese counterpart. The meeting of the leaders of the two biggest economies will take place in the backdrop of rising tensions between Washington and Beijing over a series of issues. President Trump has been very critical about the trade imbalance favoring China. During his presidential campaign last year, Trump strongly criticized Beijing on a number of occasions. The Trump administration has time and again said that China needs to do more to rein in the nuclear and missile programs of its neighbor and ally North Korea. The repeated assertions have irritated Beijing a lot. During his election campaign, Trump criticized China's South China Sea stance and island building in the strategically important region. The U.S. decision to base an advanced missile defense system in South Korea has also left Beijing disturbed. U.S.-China ties also faced a tough test when, in December, President-elect Trump took a phone call from the Taiwanese president, Tsai Ing-wen. He went on to say that Washington did not have to stick to a one-China policy. However, Washington later assured Beijing that it would honor the policy, but since then China has been suspicious about U.S. intentions regarding Taiwan. President Trump, whose presidency began on January 20, will host Xi Jinping on April 6 and 7 at his Mar-a-Lago retreat in Florida. It will be the first meeting between Xi and Trump. The White House said that global, regional and bilateral issues of mutual concern would be discussed during the summit.
The President looks forward to meeting with President Xi and exchanging views on each other's respective priorities and to chart a way forward on a bilateral relationship between our two nations.
The Chinese side also reiterated its commitment to expand bilateral cooperation with the U.S.
The two leaders will conduct in-depth exchanges on the Sino-US relation and international issues of common concerns, enhance mutual understanding, expand bilateral cooperation, and promote bilateral exchanges.
U.S. and Chinese officials have been doing the required groundwork for the success of the summit. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's China visit this month was an opportunity for the two sides to work on a forward-looking approach and leave the gaps behind, especially in a scenario where both the nations acknowledge the other's importance.
As the world focuses on climate change more and more, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to nullify predecessor Barack Obama's environmental regulation. The US President said that he signed it due to his policy of America First. Now, the order, according to President Trump, would help in ensuring a clean atmosphere without sacrificing economic growth. However, the US government will have to show a concrete proof of these policies if it has to bring about what it calls a new energy revolution.
Even as the battle against climate change intensifies, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to nullify predecessor Barack Obama's environmental regulation. Signing the regulation, the US President reiterated his policy of America First through this change and called this a new energy revolution.
This will allow the EPA to focus on its primary mission of protecting our air and protecting our water. Together, we are going to start a new energy revolution, one that celebrates American production on American soil. We want to make our goods here instead of shipping them in from other countries all over the world.
Previously, President Barack Obama's Clean Power Plan had required states to slash carbon emissions from power plants. Now, President Trump says his new order will eliminate federal overreach and start a new era of production and job creation. Known as the Energy Independence Order, Trump's executive decision, apart from rolling back Obama's key directions on climate change, all agencies have been asked to reconsider regulations, rules, policies and guidance documents that have put up roadblocks to domestic energy production. This move has met with widespread opposition among activists at home and leaders around the world who are appalled that the dream of better and cleaner environment is in jeopardy.
With the stroke of a pen, President Trump has attempted to undo years of progress made to address climate change.
We regret that the United States is rolling back the main pillar of its climate policy, the Clean Power Plan.
The Trump team, however, has sought to allay fears that environment takes a backseat. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said protecting environment and promoting economy are not mutually exclusive goals. The executive order, he said, will help to ensure clean air and clean water without sacrificing economic growth and job creation. The Trump administration now has to come up with a set of alternate policies for climate change combat to show a concrete proof of these beliefs.
Let's get you more news from across the world now.
Protests have escalated in Venezuela against the Supreme Court move to assume functions of opposition-led National Assembly. Opposition leaders have called the court order a coup. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has said he would resolve the controversy as soon as possible. The development has sparked outcry and condemnation from neighboring countries and international bodies. Independence Voice gains momentum in the United Kingdom even as the informal process for separation from the European Union has started. Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon sent a letter to Prime Minister Theresa May demanding she be allowed a second referendum on independence after the Scottish Parliament backed the call. Scotland and Northern Ireland had voted to remain in the bloc in June last year. In a shocking development, villagers in Democratic Republic of Congo discovered the remains of 2 UN investigators and their Congolese interpreter who went missing on the 12th of March in an area engulfed in a violent uprising. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said the world body would conduct an inquiry. Michael Sharp, a US citizen, and Zaida Catalan, a Swedish national, had been in a group of experts monitoring a sanctions regime imposed on Congo. A 5-foot debris shield being installed in the International Space Station floated away during a spacewalk by 2 veteran US astronauts. Peggy Whitson, who became the world's most experienced female spacewalker during the outing, and Station Commander Shane Kimbrough were about midway through a planned 6.5-hour spacewalk to prepare a docking port for upcoming commercial space taxis and to tackle other maintenance tasks. NASA says engineers determined it posed no safety threat to the astronauts or to the facility.
We'll be going into another break now, but on the other side, we'll explore the happiest country in the world and talk more about that Ronaldo bust, which is turning heads all over the world. Stay tuned. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the happiest of them all? Well, it's Norway, and it has all the reasons to smile. From freedom, corruption and generosity to social support and satisfaction, Norwegians have smiled their way up the happiness ladder this year, and here's how they define happiness.
Norway is the happiest of them all, says the World Happiness Report published this year. The Nordic country unseated Denmark to take the top honors. The report released every year assesses life expectancy, freedom, social support, corruption, generosity and other factors that would lead to satisfaction of its citizens of 155 countries. Iceland, Switzerland, Finland, Netherlands, Canada, New Zealand, Australia and Sweden feature in the top 10 list, indicating that the Nordic region is a content lot. The Norwegians themselves seem to be excited about the outcome, and everyone has a reason to explain the joy de vivre that reflects in the country.
Especially in the spring, I think, because then it's bright and light and the heat is coming. Yep, then we are happy.
I think Norway is happier than Denmark because they have more money.
Though it is true that happiness cannot be measured in numbers, the list aims at policies that would focus on building social trust and equality so as to improve the well-being of all the citizens. Published by Sustainable Development Solutions Network, though income does come among the top of the factors that constitute happiness, finding a person to trust at times of trouble is equally important. Cheer does not conform to high spirits at a personal level, but a spirit of gladness that arises of the immediate and public social circle that surrounds the individual. So, for a person to be happy, indicators point out that it helps if the country too is happy. Countries battling continuous unrest and economic downturn are subsequently pushed down in the list. South Sudan, Liberia, Guinea, Togo, Rwanda, Tanzania, Burundi and the Central African Republic, along with Syria and Yemen, were among the least happy countries in the 5th annual report. Syria and Yemen are plagued by internal disturbances where people are often forced to move out of the country. The African region also faces a similar problem where economically weaker markets and civil wars has forced people who are in countries to look for greener pastures elsewhere. This report also, in a way, brings the plight of these countries on a global stage, making global powers work for solutions along with local leaders to make them much better places to live in.
And now here's all that made news in the world of showbuzz. Madeira in Portugal renamed its airport in honor of Cristiano Ronaldo on Wednesday, although it is a new statue of the 4-times World Player of the Year that grabbed the headlines. The Atlantic island is where Ronaldo grew up, and the airport in its capital will now be known as Aeroporto Cristiano Ronaldo. The unveiling of the statue led many on social media to question the work's resemblance to the player. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences decided to retain services of PricewaterhouseCoopers despite a backstage envelope mix-up. The company that had overseen Oscar balloting for 83 years had, after the goof-up, carried a detailed investigation into tightening the procedures. 2 accountants who were responsible for the mistake were removed. British band Busted, who reformed in late 2015 after 11 years, say they are getting used to being back together. The pop group had adapted to the new music industry changed significantly since the height of their success in the early 2000s. Charlie Simpson, James Bourne and Matt Willis were known for hits like What I Go to School For and Year 3000. Since the reunion, the trio has been on an arena tour in Britain and Ireland and also released the album Night Driver in November. Veteran bluesman Eric Bibb has brought the migration issues to the forefront in his new album Migration Blues. Bibb uses sounds of the American South to tell the tale of everyone from 1920s farmers fleeing the Dust Bowl for California to refugees crossing the Mediterranean to Europe in recent times.
My way.
London commuters were pleasantly surprised when singer John Legend staged an impromptu performance at the St Pancras station. The 38-year-old singer sat down at the concourse piano and continued to play Surefire, All of Me and his classic Ordinary People for the delighted Londoners. Remember Eddie Murphy's Dr. Dolittle, the movie where he cures and talks to animals? Well, Virginia has its very own beloved doctor, Derrick Campana. He helps animals walk back again without charging their owners a very high cost. So the owners love him and so do their four-legged family members.
Dr. Dolittle, with his insight into the feelings of animals, captured the hearts of the film lovers world over. Derrick Campana, the real-life Dolittle from Virginia, helps animals, those that have lost their legs, walk again. The orthotist and prosthetist from Virginia made prosthetic legs made of highly durable medical-grade plastics, a cost-effective alternative that gives the affected animals a chance to move around.
So people might think this costs a lot, but literally most braces cost between $500 and $700, and a prosthesis normally runs around $1,250. I mean, a lot of times you walk into a vet facility and you're spending hundreds of dollars and you're not getting anything. This is actually giving the pet mobility. It's giving them a leg to walk on for a low cost.
Campana, who started off as a prosthetist for humans, took the call to make these artificial limbs for animals too, after a veterinarian had approached him for more. And his specialization in animal prosthesis has not just brightened the lives of pets, but their owners too.
The kids just love her to death, and she loves kids, so you know it's really a great thing. The prosthetics, if it wasn't for that, she'd never made it.
It was amazing to see her run like everybody else, to not have to hold it up so that it didn't drag on the ground. It just made my heart feel good.
World over too, people approach Campana for such problems. He relishes the success of his experiments when the animals start walking again. A dream come true, a miracle.
Well, this brings us to the end of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedbacks. You can write to us. Our email ID is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Now, before we leave, we bring you glimpses of the Disneyland's Silver Jubilee anniversary celebrations in Paris. There were the good old Mickey and Minnie Mouse and the beautiful Disney fairies. Take a look at those visuals. We'll be back next week. Thanks for joining in. Namaskar.